Now that we have created a plan for how to solve this task, we can create a script and start working. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a script and I'm going to write the main function first, and then we can take a look at what we should do after that. So alright, what should we add in our main function? We see here what we have said in our plan is that we shall initialize the and the food position. And after that, we're going to have a variable called moves that we set to 0. So I'm going to do those two things. And we can see here that I created two tuples, one for the and position and one for the food position. So this is the starting positions. This is totally made up, 3,5. That is a position that I picked, which is within the limit from -10 to 10 for each of x and y. Something to note here before we continue on is that normally when you write x and y coordinates, you set y first. So I'll just write here that this is my y and this is my x. We'll come back to y in a little bit, but just remember that when you're giving positions, you're usually giving y first. And then we also set moves to be equal to 0. After that, if we take a look at our plan here, we can see that, alright, it's time to create a loop that will continue as long as we have moves left. And if you remember, we have 2,500 moves to see if we find the food or not. We shall also check that we haven't found the food yet. And if we haven't found it, we shall move the and increase the number of moves. And now let's see if we can write the code for this loop. And here we have the loop. So we say that as long as moves is less than 2,500 and we haven't found the food's position, or that the and is not on the food's position, then we should continue in here. And what do? We say that the and position is updated with the value returned by the move function. And we can see here that we give the current position as arguments for that function, because in the description we were told that we are not allowed to send the and's position as a tuple. We must send it as two separate values to the function. After that, we update moves. Before we continue, I think it's important to stop here, because when you're writing code, you can go about this in two different ways. Like you saw me do now, that I wrote this bit here. I know that I'm going to create this move function. So I added it here. Currently it does not work because we haven't created the move function. But I added it. That is one way of doing it, that you add it here and finish the code that you have here, then you go and write this function. Another way of approaching this is that, alright, you see that you need this move function here now. Then you stop what you're doing here and you define that function and start writing that, and then you come back here in code. And from time to time you will see me use both approaches. It's what you're most comfortable with that you should use. So either you write the code here first and then go write the function, or you stop here, go write the function and return back here. For now, I'm going to finish what we have in main, and then after that we're going to write the move function. Alright, so let's take a look at what we have left here. We see that, alright, if we imagine that we now have finished the loop, we shall display the results. So that is what we have left to do here. Let me do that. we see that, all right, we have an if statement to check if we found it, and if we did, we display one message. Here it's important to remember that we were told to include how many moves it took. And if we don't find it, we have another message to print. But now that we are finished with that main function, let's continue and write the move function. And we see here what we should do is that we shall increase either x or y, and we are going to increase it by something in the range from -1 to 1. But how shall we select which one, if it's x or y? One way we can do it is as follows. We can say that we use random and we use random choice. We have seen this before when we picked a value from a list in one of the other tasks that we solved. And what we do here is that we create a list with the two values true or false. And then we ask from random choice to pick one of the two. So it will be either true or false. And if it's true, then maybe we increase x, or then maybe we change the x value. And if it's false, we change the y value. Then it might look something like this. Okay, so we have picked one, either x or y, and we have increased it within the range of -1 to 1. But okay, now we have one updated value and one that has not been updated. Now it's time to return that as a new tuple, and that we can do by creating a new tuple. So let's try to run it and see what happens. See if we have forgot something. We can see we didn't find it, so we didn't get any errors, but the ant didn't find its food. Let's try again and see if we can manage to find it. No, no. Oh, we see that after a few runs here, we managed to find the food after 566 moves. So it seems to be working the way it was intended to. But now that we're finished, there is one thing I want to point out here with this task that we shall definitely remember. If we go back and see, I wrote a comment here before and said that, all right, normally what we do is that we have the first value as y and the second as x. And we see the same goes here when I'm returning this value. When I create a new tuple, I use y and x. But if we take a look at when I created my function up here, I said that x comes first. So in here we have the order x, y. And it's not uncommon when you see function to see them with x first. This is something that we must be careful about. So if we go down and see where I call it, here we can see that, all right, when I pick the position for what's going to be x, I didn't put 0 here, I put 1, just to make sure that I'm sending this position here, which is the x, and then 0 is actually y. The first one, y here, we can see y, that goes into y here. So be extra careful when you have coordinates to make sure that x and y match.